Yo, what's up? Okay, so two incomes. Do you really think that people today, married couples with or without children, do you really think two incomes are necessary today? You hear it all the time. People are like, "Duh, you need two incomes to live now. You need two incomes." Now, people are working usually. Now, I'm talking about husbands and wives, and I'm also talking about husbands, wives, or whatever partners, and with children or without. But usually, the two income thing, the phrase, "Yeah, you need two incomes nowadays," that usually pertains to, you know, married people who have a child or children. Not so much childless people, although that could be that. But typically, when they say, "Oh, you need two incomes," they're talking about, again, you know, mom, dad, or two partners and a child or children. So my argument is this: that's a very popular phrase, and yes, some marriages with or without children need to have two incomes. Yes, no doubt. However, it's not black and white. Just because you're married with children does not mean you need two incomes. I think it's more want two incomes, because when you look at it, when people now, obviously, if you got 15 kids and the husband, you got to work. It's two parents got to work. But what about if you are married or cohabitating and you have a child, but you know the one spouse, husband or wife, makes 200,000 a year, and the other spouse makes 100,000 a year, and they have one child. That's 300,000 a year for a family of three: mother, father, child. Each person can live on $100,000. Now, a lot of moving parts here, because it all depends. Do you need two incomes? It depends on lifestyle. Period. And lifestyle also includes how many children you choose to have. And also, I guess where you choose to live within a general area. Because, for instance, I'm in the New York City area. If you're making 300,000 and it's a family of three, mother, father, and child, living in Manhattan, 300,000, I mean, you're going to need two incomes, probably. You could live on the one income, the person making 200,000, and three people. You could. But when you hear people talk, they act like, "Oh, it's an absolute necessity." That's not true. Now, if you have, two 300,000, but you're living in the suburbs of New York City, you could live with 200,000 and with three people very comfortably. You just don't buy a big house and don't go on fancy trips and don't have 15 pairs of shoes and don't have the latest new car every 3 years. You know what I mean? So I think that's what happens. I think when people say, "Oh, we need two incomes," that's because more often than not, they're going on vacation once a year. They have a brand new leased car every 3 years. The two partners, they give their kids, maybe they go to private school, they have, huge holidays. So yeah, if you could do that, but that's not a need, that's a want. So I'd make the argument it's more that people want. You don't need two incomes for most families. I know in my circle of friends, I have friends, they range from, poor to very wealthy. And I would say most of my friends, it's funny because I have friends where there's a mother and a father and a child, and the whole household, well, the mother, father, and child, and the husband works, the mother stays home, and for the three people, they live comfortably on $150,000 a year. They don't have, the mother stays home. And then I have another friend of mine who is mother, father, again, one child, but the father works, makes 300,000 a year. The mother works, she makes 300,000 a year, and they got one kid. Now, they don't have to work 600,000 a year. Jesus Christ. They don't have to work. But again, it's what lifestyle do you want, So the one couple makes less and the parent stays home and they're fine. And the other couple, quote unquote, has to work, but they're making 600,000 a year. So, I mean, I know couples where a mother, father, and child, and they make just the one salary of 80,000 a year, but they're just really good with budgeting. They go to free events and free public parks. They don't go to Disney. They have, two cars, but they're two older cars that are 10 years older each. They don't get a lot of, you know, unnecessary things. They live in just a two-bedroom, apartment, and they're good with budgeting, and they don't, like I said, they don't go on fancy vacations. They don't do big holidays. They drive old cars. They have each one person get one pair of sneaker and one pair of shoes, and they have free basic cable. They don't go and subscribe to this and subscribe to that and subscribe to, and they get a lot of their clothing from the Walmart or whatever. It all depends on how you want to live, So I think that's again, understood. There could be people who, you know, they have mother and a father and a child, and the mom works at McDonald's and the father works at Home Depot, and then he Ubers. Totally get that. But more often than not, I think people are doing two incomes because they want to, not because they have to. And you could even make the argument. I mean, honestly, kids don't just pop out of the sky. I mean, you have to make an effort, a conscious effort to want to have sex, to have a child. That's another big, expenditure, whether you like it or not, right? I mean, and I'm not saying don't have kids, but it's a lifestyle. Hey, I want to have 5 kids. I want to have 6 kids. I want to have a big family. Oh, God bless. But, hey, you're probably going to have 2 incomes, versus like I have a friend of mine, him and his wife, they have no kids. Well, you guessed it. They really don't have, they have no money problems. I mean, and she's a stay-at-home wife, and he has his income. He makes maybe $100,000 a year, maybe not even. Anyways, it all depends on the life and lifestyle that you are choosing to have. Do you love alcohol? I mean, alcohol, do you love to vape and smoke cigarettes? Do you have a ton of hobbies? I mean, these are things that take money. Well, does your kid have to go to a private school? All these different things, right? Do they have to play club sports? Can they just do the town sport? Blah, 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 blah. Goes on and on and on. But yeah, so I think a lot of times when we say we have to have 2 incomes, that's not necessary. People want that. They don't need to have 2 incomes. But again, it's all people want the latest this and the latest that, and the 1 or 2 vacations a year, and and I get it. Poor people, and they got to work 10 jobs each. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I think more often than not, it's a want. It's not a need. Again, I know people who don't have college degrees, and they have no child or 1 child, and they don't go on vacation, and they don't do anything, no big holidays. They don't wear fancy stuff, and they're not in debt, and they have a nice, comfy life. And they make under 100,000 a year for the whole, 3 people, mom, dad, and child. I don't know. Yeah. So what do you think? Comment section below. Thanks. Bye.